this video tutorial, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the navigation menu option up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of these screens that we just touched on lightly. We've done most of our work in this, the meal order screen. We're going to go through the list views, the menu managers, and the invoice and invoice report. So let's go ahead and start. Let's start out by going to the order list view. In the order list view, basically what we're doing is repeating some of the information that was in that screen on the order, where we have the record of the order number, the date, the seating time, and the server name. And then we have these topic buttons here where we have the header. If you click on it, it actually puts in the time for each one of these events. Now, what this is all about, this particular record, is that when the management or supervisors want to see anything that's going on in a given period, for example, if it's starting in the morning and you're looking at the orders that are coming in for that date, for the date that's here and the time, you can review the actual activity as each table is occupied and orders taken, it's served, paid, and now available again for use. And it gives them some idea on a trend during the day, what is actually going on, who's coming through. And the same thing occurs where if you want to go back and look at prior dates, you can go back and see what the trends are for those prior dates and that information and how it affects your business. Now, if you see things, for example, that are taking a long time between each step in here, you might want to check to see if the server is having issues, or are there table issues, or is the kitchen falling behind, or whatever it may be. This is going to give you a good trend to see between the order time and the serve time, or when it's checking out and their paid time, and how soon is it available after the paid time. So this gives you a good insight to what's going on with the functionality of your restaurant on a table-by-table basis, on a day-to-day basis, and at each times during the day. You can see trends during the day, like people coming in earlier, midday, or late day, or evening, and what kind of reactions you're getting by crowd size and so forth, and the number of orders. Now, this little field over here, this is used on the Mac, Windows, and Cloud, where you put a date range in that looks like this: greater than, equal to, the date, less than or equal to, and the date. You can't do that in the iPad, because what happens when you click on this, I'm going to show you, when you click on this field, you have to do it in a find in order to fill in that information. So say start the find, and then you click in it. On the iPad, it's going to throw up the calendar selection. Well, you can't put this formula in here to get the date range in an iPad or an iPhone. This is really reserved for the not the iPhone, but the Mac, Windows, and the cloud hosted application. Okay, so that takes care of that. We can go in and again, and I'm going to show you this. If you say perform find and you have no data in there, you're going to get this where it'll say the provided find criteria is not valid. Enter a valid request before proceeding. And you can go back in and say modify the find and add the data if you didn't get it in correctly, or you can say cancel. When you say cancel, it'll flip the thing back and show you the data that is available right now. Down at the bottom of the actual screen, you'll see that we have the sum for all meals for the records that are in selection. Same thing for the taxes for the record are in selection. And the sum balance due. If there's any unpaid, you'll see red fields here where the green ones are in there now. Green meaning go, which are paid. Red meaning there is a balance due and it hasn't been paid. So very quickly, if you're a manager or supervisor, you can look at this report and see everything that is trending, plus if it's been paid or not paid at the particular time. If you see something where it says paid and the information is incorrect, and you got something going on where the people are not putting in the right data, it's going to be very obvious when you look at it. Either there will not be a paid time. This will still say available when it's supposed to be paid. It would be available if it were only clean tables, and it should be available down here showing the time for availability. So you have to make sure when you're looking through this that people are putting in the right information and statuses each day and each meal by each order. Okay, let's go back up here and take a look at the next thing, which is the meal order portal, which is when you do an order, you have a row record in the portal, and this is the information that you have in the portal. This is the top of the portal. Above it is the actual record information and data that's on the screen. The reason we're looking at this record is you can do a selection of records from a portal by doing a search which is called also a find, by using the fields that are available in the actual portal record. For example, you may want to look up the meal item by the meal item name. And when you do a search, what you do is you start the search, you pick whatever you want to look for, and then what happens as you pick the item, maybe you go to one of the screens that has to do with the portal records for the meal order, and what you'll see is that only those records that you select will be shown in the found set, and whatever criteria you use. In most cases, what you're doing is you're using this one that's highlighted in yellow, which is the actual ID for the meal item. And when you're trying to do that, you're probably looking at something where you want to see how often this particular meal item is being ordered. And then when you look at the list view for the portal, let's go back over there and look at the list view for the portal, you're going to see all the items. When you did them in selection, you can either do it in this screen and pick them, or you can do it in the portal screen that we just came from, and it'll give you a list view based on the actual item number. So for example, if I'd put in 3, it would be the only record in selection, and this would be the record that would show. But of course, over time, what's going to happen, you're going to see all the 3s, all the 1s or 4s, or whatever your particular item is. You may want to adjust your menu. For example, if you're not getting sales on a certain item and it's not popular, you may want to alter that item or readdress what's wrong with it by having a taste test, or you can compare it to some people that can come in and say, what did you like or not like about that particular serving? And that's the kind of things you need to know to improve your menu and make sure that the items that you're offering are palatable for the patrons, and they actually like the food you're serving, and they make comments. And it's great to put in something, or for example, like a questionnaire at the end of the meal, not to every customer, but maybe certain meal items that you want to see if that meal item is really what you would like it to be, and what kind of remarks you're getting that cover that. So this is the meal order, going back to the meal order, and if you look over here, you're going to see the pop-up item that shows the actual meal item from the portal, which is also available there for the picture, where it's created when you create the meal item. This gives you an opportunity to show that information on whatever basis you are and you want to use it. There's the crispy fries that are in the large view and so forth. Down at the bottom, you're going to see the sum total and actual value for sales for whatever the records are in selection for all of the records. Of course, if you do now pick, say, for example, item number 3 over, say, a month or 6 months or whatever, you get a summary total of what the income is for that item and how much is the tax collected and what is the meal sum for all of those with the taxes and this together, or just looking at the meal sum without it. Now, these are kind of important that if you have the taxes for any given period, you can look at that because you're reporting taxes to the state, city, or county, depending where you're located, because you have to pay taxes. Okay, so let's go to the next item. We've gone through the meal order list view, the portal, and we are now on the portal list view, which is this one. Now we're going to go ahead and look at something we haven't touched on yet, which is the meal order manager. And this is where I said there's an actual image of each item that you have in your menu options. It is shown through different screens to include the actual order screen. And then you have the actual description of the item. And the way this works, when you're creating your menu options, and these are the menu options that you actually have, you have to consider something before you just start throwing them in. You probably want to group them, and group them by the item number, and specifically how you want to group them in the item number. The item number does not have a narrative that talks about the item. It is a number. And how that number is done, for example, you may say 1, and it could be 1D for drinks, 1 for hors d'oeuvres, 1 for entrees, and so forth, with a first letter or initial of that group. And creating a group is your option to do that or not if you want to, or just use numeric values where everything from 1 to 30 is one kind of a group, everything from 31 through such and such is the next group, and so on. It's how you want to run your business, how you set up your meal options. It's kind of nice if you do set them up that way, because when somebody's dropping them down and looking at them in the order screen, grouping them in a group where they really have some kind of relationship, like all the sandwiches, for example. Maybe if you sell steak dinners, you'd have a steak entree dinner, and so forth. You group those that way, and all the drinks maybe are grouped in, say, all together in a numeric set from 50 through 100, for example, and then of course the prices that you're charging for each individual item. Now obviously if you change the price on this screen, This is going to change the value of your income one way or the other. In some cases, maybe you're charging too much, and that's one of the reasons why things are not selling all the time. So you need to look at your pricing to make sure that it is competitive. Then you have a meal record note in here. This is where you would capture that information. Say, for example, you do a survey, and maybe you did 15 surveys for this item, and you found that 6 out of 10 or 10 out of 15 or whatever it is, and then the notes as far as how popular it is and what changes you need to make. For example, maybe people don't like mayonnaise in something. That could turn them off, or the sauce that you're using isn't flavorful the way they want it to be. Whatever that is, you can put it in there by that meal option, and then change or make changes in it and correct it based on the notes that you took. Okay, let's go to the next item. The list view for the menu manager items shows you each one of the menu items in sequence, so you can see how you've grouped them, who is in the group as far as what products, and the values for each one of them, and how you're going to be selling them is really important as far as, are you competitive with the market, and are your products really something that's tantalizing and meets the goals of selling to your clients. Okay, so this is the record, and it also has the photo in here for each individual item, so you can see what each one of them is going to look like. If you wanted to, for example, on your iPad and you're around a table and somebody says, well, what does the crispy fries look like in the large? So you can click this up and you have what it looks like. So one of the servers, for example, and it shows the value, could show the food item and what it actually looks like when it's served. So that might be something you might want to consider. Next, we're going to go down to the actual invoice. And before I do that, I want to pop back over to the meal order and point out some of the things you're going to see there. The numerics, the order itself, and the information as far as how it was charged is going to be the principal items in this particular invoice that you're going to be looking at. Now, the invoice is set up because it's very much like the fast food receipt that you receive in most restaurants, where it actually breaks down the information. You would put in your own business information at the top of this. Directly to the right of this, you're going to see there's a little kind of a grace thing here, this little symbol. This will not print, but when you're looking at this screen, for example, and you want to either do a navigate or a find, in this case a find is the same as a search. When I do a find, say for example I want the order number for a specific record, I can flip this over and I can put the order number in there. In this case I'll put 1. And then what I do is I go back and I say do the find, and then I see the receipt for that particular item with the information for the record items, and this will be the items that were sold. And let's take a look at this. Going down from order number 1, here's the date, the server, the table number. We have the subtotal, which is the product itself for each one of these that we're selling as far as the sum of the items that were sold. So you have 450 and 180, which sums to the 630. We have a tax. We have a meal with the tax up to 684. If there was a tip, the tip will show on here. Now, obviously, if you're pre-printing this to take it to the table and it shows the items that were sold, you can also bring up this on the screen if you'd like to and show it to a customer and say if everything's okay or fine, you can do that. But you can also print this to your local printer before you go to the table and have the paper copy, and they can enter in there what they want to do as far as a tip collected, and that you could put the tip in there as far as what you're going to actually have, or a tip that the person wants to pay. Now, obviously, if people get up and they go to another location where they actually pay for their meal, this could be at that location with, say, either an iPad or a desktop computer where they're actually paying for the meal and then adding the tip to it, and then it'll total up. And that's where you would ask them, would you like to leave a tip? Or you can print this out, hand it to them, and let them review it, and then go ahead and let them put a tip on it or not, and then go ahead and have them pay for it based on the tip and the total amount of money, which in this case is the payment amount. This is the amount they paid, how they paid for it, and what the balance is. If they don't pay for the whole thing based on these two numbers, then this will have a charge in there. And as we showed you on the main screen, you got a last 4 digits of a credit card. But if it's cash, obviously there's not going to be anything on the card as far as that's concerned. Now, this should all be done prior to looking at this. You do it on the order screen. So if you go back to the order screen by clicking on order in here, and you want to make changes to it, go back to the order screen and say, for example, you want to add the tip. That way you would update all this information here, pop over, and then print the invoice when you're done with this information here. Obviously, if a customer comes up, the server should have given them something that said what the actual meal cost is going to be, so that they have a pre-printed slip. When they go to take the slip to them, they can enter the amount of the tip on that pre-printed one, and then go ahead, and then from that point they would have the summary total when they come to the cash register. Or the individual server can take the order at that point and ask them if they want to put a tip on it, and if they do, you can do that. And I'm going to bring something and breaches later. We're going to be talking about tips and how tips are managed in a different screen, and I'll break that to you on a special video that we're going to do toward the end of all the videos on the video tutorials. Okay, so what we've covered in here, we've gone to the management. The only thing we have missed at this point is the order invoice report. On the order invoice report, we have a similar thing on the screen where you, if you're on a Mac or Windows or on the cloud server, you can do that formula in here that's indicated right here to get a date range of records. This is only for those, not the iPad and iPhone. You can use this for getting a single date range, for example, or you can do it over here as the same way. You can put in a specific date if you're looking for an individual record, but in most cases you would go ahead and put in a numeric value in here. And you have to be in the find mode in order to see it. So I go and say start a search, and in this case I click in here, and then what it would do is give me that information as far as what I'm going to put in there. In this case, you see when it drops down, I actually have the actual order number and the date of the order number to tell me what it is. So you have to separate the two as far as the first and second order and so forth in the date. That's supposed to be able to help you to find the order number. Then the item number, which is the one we're really concerned with at this point, which brings up the item number and the actual item that was being sold there. And that would be, if you're looking for it and you want to say find all the crispy fries medium that were out there that were sold, then you could put that 3 in there in your find, and it would find those records. You do not use this field here to find the actual item, because all it's going to show up here is going to be chicken, deluxe cheese. You could put it in there if you wanted to look that way, but I suggest it's a lot easier to use the item number rather than the actual narrative. One of the reasons for having a drop down too is that the individual servers should not have to ever enter anything in here as far as a value, as far as putting in chicken deluxe or anything like that, because it's something that they could alter and you don't want them altering it. When you're in the search mode like we are right here, if they type anything in or add anything in here, it's not going to be saved, because this is driven by the item number and not by the actual item that you're seeing in there. The rest of the information, server, say for example you're looking for the specific server and everything that they sold for a given day, you could put the day in there, picking the date on order date, put that in, and then put the server name in. Then you see all the items that that server sold for that day, and then you're going to see things like the summary total, the tax, and the meal sum of all the things that were sold for that particular person on that particular day. So these are supposed to be very helpful things that you can manage, and at the same time when you're looking at this and reviewing it, I'm going to go ahead and perform the find to see it, say cancel. You'll see the thing in here like, did they charge tax? Is it correct? So if you're going back through and you're looking at this information, it will help you to summarize the information. And down at the bottom, you get a record summary at the bottom, as well as down here, you get the grand summary. This is the summary for the items that were actually picked in orders 1 and order 1 here, because we searched by order 1. This particular search that we did to find these, we did in the portal. And you see it when you come out here on the line items. You will see that just that order that you did in the portal is actually shown here with the summary total for that order. If you go in here and go back to the portal, you'll see that information in that particular record, and you can click this meal button order thing here to go in and actually see that individual record. The other thing you can do is, if you want to see all the records, and we've done this before, and I told you we'd be coming back, you can say show all records, and what it's going to do, it's going to present all the records for that particular piece of information that we had in here. So now you're seeing all the records that were available. And of course the summary totals at the bottom are going to change. There are times where you want to look at the summary total or not. And this is in the report. The report is an important thing because it does give you the ability to move through and look at all the information, all the data that was, what was sold, and the sales tax, the summary of the sales tax, and then the grand summary for all the records that are in there. And in this particular case, there will be a button in here that you'll be clicking on. It's not shown right now. That'll be put in here where it'll say run the total, and what it'll do in the report, it'll come back, or you can just pop out of the screen, pop out, go back to meal orders, and then come back into it again, and you'll see that it'll actually put the headers back on it like it was up here. That's a fast way to put those back in there, but I will have a button in here that will show you when you click on it, it'll say run report, and that will show the headers back on the fields. And these are the headers right here. Okay, so let's recap a little bit what we went through and what you saw. You saw the meal order we started out with, the meal order list view, the meal order portal, the meal order portal list view, the menu manager where you're creating your menu option items and its list view for those items, the actual invoice, and the invoice report. If you have any questions and you need support or help, you can always go back to the Do Action button, go down to Developer Support, click on that. It'll open up the web page for the support site, and you can go ahead and ask questions. If you want to go back and review the video help, the actual videos that you were watching, you can go back here and look at it by clicking on this.